This is a tutorial for how to do a simple explosion in Anime Studio 7. And you can do the same thing in Anime Studio 5 or 6. I just happen to be using 7. So these explosions are found in my videos, primarily the video Epic Battle, if you want to check that out. But here's how I do it. So the basic explosion looks something like this. That's it in slow motion, so I'll show you how I did it. So what I use is a switch layer, which you can see over here. And underneath it, or inside of it, are a bunch of different vector layers. So each vector layer is a different frame for the explosion. And I'll go through step by step. So to start off, you go to New Layer and click Switch. So the switch layer is what is going to toggle between the vector layers so they're not all displayed at once. That's going to give you the frame by frame effect that you want. So you start off, let's start the animation at 12, or 24, so it's away from the other one. So, new layer, vector layer. So click on that, and drag it into the switch layer. So if you open up the switch layer, and drag it until you see the switch layer turn red. So now you know it's inside it. So now right click on the switch layer, and select layer 3. So that shows it that at frame 24, it's going to be displaying layer 3. So now on layer 3, you can start animating your explosion. So what I like to do is for the fill, I like to have a lighter color, usually yellowish. And for the inside of it, or for the stroke, I like to have a darker color, usually orange. So I'll select the orange, and I'll just do a really quick one. So turn on auto stroke and just make a very tight, compact explosion. And you usually want the lines to be a bit thicker for the very beginning of the explosion. And then do a couple effects, or little blobs inside. So now what our explosion looks like is this, which doesn't look very explosion-y. So double click on the switch layer and turn the blur radius to something about around 13. You can change it for whatever style you're doing. And I usually make it a tiny bit see-through, so change the opacity to about 90. That way if there's scenery in the background, you'll be able to see through it a tiny bit. So now, it doesn't look perfect, but it looks a lot more like an explosion. So now we can go on to the next frame, which is frame 25. At this point, you should turn on onion skins, so check on the enable onion skins box and the relative frames blocks. And what the relative frames box is going to do is, if you can see the little box that symbolizes where the onion skin is, wherever I move my cursor, that's going to follow right behind. That way you don't have to keep on deleting and recreating them. So now I'm on frame 25. I'm just going to go new vector. And what the switch layer will automatically do is it'll switch to that vector on frame 25. So now on that vector layer, I can draw a bigger version of the explosion. In the very beginning, you want to expand very rapidly, just like this, and then make those bits inside again. And the bits inside can be more randomized than the explosion, but you want the explosion to follow the same basic pattern as before. For instance, you can see all the points. So for instance, this point right here just is expanded, and that point right there. Now go on to frame 26 and do the same thing. Now at this point, you probably want the explosion to start breaking up in the middle. So expand your points, not as much as you did the last time, and then just draw sort of like a randomized edge over to there. And you can do that with this one, and you can group them if you want. I'm just doing a very fast version. There, like that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all the points that are inside, and go to width, and make the width very small. And I'll do that with the other two clumps. And it doesn't have to be exact, because you're only going to see it for one frame. That's the nice thing about doing frame-by-frame animations. Now I'm going to go back to the freehand tool and unclick auto stroke and just fill in the middle a bit. So now it's looking more like an explosion. Whoops. So we ran into a problem. When you're creating the switch layer, inside the layer, each layer has to be named something different. So layer 3 was the name of my first one, and layer 3 is the name of the one I just drew. So that confuses the switch layer, and it displays the old one, which is not what you want. So make sure that the first layer is always named layer 1. This is a problem you'll run into a lot of times, and you won't know what to do, but now you do. So now the animation looks good. So in the first, it should be layer 1, then it goes on to layer 2, and then layer 3. There. Now, I'm not going to finish animating the rest of it. You can see from then on what the animation should do is it should break up more and more. But you should notice that the points along the outer edge never actually expand that much more. So in the very beginning it expands a bunch, but it stays relatively exactly where it was, which is what normal explosions do. They explode out, but then the fire catches up to itself, and it doesn't actually end up continuing to burst out. And that's what makes most animated explosions look fake, is that they continue to burst out after the majority of the flames have died off. And the nice thing about doing this with the switch layer is if you can see, if you go to the switch layer, you can see all the points down here. These are all the points for the switch layer. So I can have it begin with layer 10, which was the blank one, and end with layer 10, meaning that I can just select all these points, go copy, go to a random place in the animation, paste it. So at any point in the animation where I want that effect, I can have it. And of course I can affect the size and position of it just like I would any other layers. You can have different explosions in your animation. So I hope this helps, and you can fool around with adding motion blur if you think that makes it look better. It's a different style of explosions. I generally like to do it without motion blur, but I hope this tutorial was helpful, and feedback is appreciated on how I can do better tutorials or just include more details or whatever. So thanks.